Hey guys, welcome back to the show. So today we have a very special guest whose name is Aaron, and we're going to be talking about betting halves versus betting full games. We'll have some content for NFL and NBA. Aaron's going to give you a little bit of background on both and why he started betting halves versus full games. We're going to give you our NFL conference championship picks, which are tomorrow. Aaron's going to have his wagers of the week and the play of the day for today. Feel free to look down in the description, and I'll make sure that we have timestamps for all those different sections of the show. So we'll kick it off, and Aaron, I'm going to kick it to you. So I'm curious because as you know, I enjoy betting and gambling. Now, I've only ever bet on full games. I hadn't actually ever thought about betting on a half. So I'm curious, what made you start betting on a half, and what's the thought process that goes into betting on a half versus betting on a full game?
Yeah, so to answer your question, Trey, I had a bad string of luck betting on the game in total against the spread a few different times.
Mhm.
So I figured to switch it up a little bit, did some research on halves as far as the NFL, NBA goes, and basically I went with the high-powered offenses. I would choose a team like the Chiefs per se, or Packers, even Saints when Drew Brees was healthy, and I would hope to bet against a weak opponent. If it was a high spread, like the Packers versus per se the Texans,
Mhm.
instead of giving up 10.5 points for the game, my logic was, hey, why not give up half of that? Give up 5.5 for the quarter, and especially in a high-powered offense that usually gets off uh, early. They go off pretty early, and um, what obviously I would have taken into perspective that they have to have a decent defense. I wouldn't just go all offense, because if you're scoring at will and you're giving up points at will, that defeats the whole purpose. Um,
So one thing that if I can interject something real quick, and we were talking about this a little bit during the pre-show, and certainly we were talking about the Browns and the Ravens insane backdoor cover with the safety, and I'm sure we've both been on both sides of the beneficiary of a backdoor cover and the wrong side of that. So what I see from that is, and again, what you were saying earlier, is it takes out a little bit of that potential. Now, you could still get backdoored in the first half, right? But you have the team that is getting the points. They're going to be still trying to aggressively score until the end of the game. And for me, the biggest takeaway is the favorite takes their foot off the gas. So can you maybe talk about that a little bit, and what you've seen betting the halves versus the full in some of those aspects?
yeah, and that's a good point, especially in the second half. If you see the Packers, I like saying the Packers, I like saying the Chiefs, because they're usually blowing teams out.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right. In the second half, they let their foot off the gas. And another good analogy would be the Alabama Clemson game. I'm sorry, Alabama Ohio State game. They were killing them in the first half, and I honestly thought about betting the second half, and I was like, no, you know what? There's probably a good chance that Ohio State outscores them in the second half, because they're up big in the first half. So to prove your point, um, yeah, it you could really have a bad beat with when you're winning the whole you're covering the whole game, and then the fourth quarter comes and high snap, or just
the
anything that
backups
happens in
in
football.
the backups in, and they
Yeah,
throw a pick six. I'll tell you a good one that I think, and I don't know what the first half spread was, but I got lucky on the Notre Dame Alabama playoff game. Notre Dame scored. I mean, just they were getting killed the whole game, and they just get a trash mop up touchdown. Now, again, I'm thrilled about that, but that was being on the other end of that. That's a bad beat, and I would think betting the half would have would have gotten rid of that. I think about Ohio State, not as much this year because it was a weird year. I think they only played 6 games during the regular season, but last year they were blowing teams out and they would take their foot off the gas. So I go to, and you know, I probably bet a little bit more college, but you see these colleges because there's way more blowouts in college than there are in the NFL. So you go back to that. You go back to that issue where, well, this team is so much better, but you got to worry about them taking the foot off the gas in the second half. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to bet the first half, because I've just been burned so many times, and even on close games where it's 3 points, you know, or you know, a field goal, and or 2.5 or 3.5, you know, and then you get that hook gets you, and that's one of the worst feelings. It's almost like you can also tease, you know, that's sidebar. You could tease that half a point, and I recommend that as well. I like I said, it's just one of those things where I've been burnt so many times that I just wanted to switch it up and see. Did a little bit of research as far as the first half went, and it's been doing well for me.
So I want to go back to a point because again, I'm a casual bettor and I've heard the word tease a lot. So I'm going to ask you to educate me on what a teaser is, other than Tomas's old Trans Am. But I want to mention one thing too. So RJ Bell always talks about when you take the points, right? So you're taking the underdog. They're always doing things that are in your favor, right? The underdog is always trying to score. When you have a team, let's take in football, and let's say they're up by 4 points and they have the ball and the spread is 6. They're not, and there's 2.5 minutes left. They're trying to run the clock out, right? That's a tough situation to get a field goal. So when you take the points, and that's where the back doors come in, they're always trying to score. So thinking about this, when you only bet the first half, that's an equalizer for the favorite, right? Because the favorite, it doesn't matter. The favorite is there's a half of a ball game left. So the favorite is still going to be trying to score at the same rate that they were at the beginning of the game. So I actually think that is, again, I'll use the term that's a little bit of an equalizer for the favorite. So let's talk about teasers. Can you explain to me, and you mentioned specifically the hook, which just for the viewers, so that's a half a point, right? So 3 versus 3.5, that's that hook. And we joke about it all the time. That hook's going to get you, right? Mm-hmm. Because the Vegas odds makers are so good at making those spreads, and especially in those, and there's a term for it, but the big numbers, right? 3's a big number, 7's a big number, right? 7 versus 7.5. A little bit less would be like 5 versus 5.5, or even 5 versus 6. I guess 6 with 2 field goals and a push versus a loss or a win. So can you just talk about a little bit, what is a teaser and how do you use it?
So basically the teaser would be, instead of getting the line at 3.5, you risked more money to shave that half a point to 3 to hope for at least you tie.
So you're paying for that half a line. You're paying for that half a point. Okay.
Correct. As far as I can remember, yes. And now the hook is basically the same thing, like you said. The hook can kill you if you're taking the favorite and it's 3.5. And they win by 3, then obviously you lose.
And that's a big half of a point.
Yeah, it's huge.
Especially in the NFL when the games are so close.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. That's educational. So that's really good stuff. And again, just for the audience, me and Aaron talked about this just briefly. And I thought it was just such an interesting topic because I have never bet a half. I enjoy betting full games, but I do think that there are advantages. One of the things that I would joke about, and we were kind of laughing pre-show, is, well, if you lose the first half, then you can win your money back on the second half. Now, reality is it gives you the opportunity to lose double versus just a single. And I fall into that, like, well, I mean, you know, there's another half. I can win my money back, especially, throw a couple of beers or a couple of drinks in there. You're watching the game with some buddies and you're like, well, I want to have something to bet. So that would be my, probably for me for caution, but I think it's really interesting the thought process behind it, and again, something that I had never thought. So Aaron, one more thing that we were talking about pre-show, and obviously I think you said the other main league that you bet, the halves in, is NBA. So we kind of talked about how the halves affect the NFL. Can you talk a little bit about the NBA and what your thought process is going into that?
Yeah. So basically, the difference between the NFL and NBA, to me personally, is scoring. Um, Scoring for the NFL is, in my opinion, way harder to score than the NBA, and especially momentum swings. So in my history of betting the NBA, first half is a little bit easier. I mean, it's never easy, but it's easier in my opinion because of my history with it and the successes that I've had in the NBA. Um, Now, that being said, it all boils back down to uh, me liking the favorite. I like the favorite. I'm willing to lay the points 9 times out of 10. As far as the favorites go, they've worked out for me. I also like taking, since in the NBA it's only 5 players on the floor,
Right.
so I definitely like superstars. So if it's, give me LeBron James all day long and his crew, Anthony Davis, that's one of my hottest bets for the first half would be taking the Lakers. I would just give a couple examples as far as the first half goes for the NBA. Would be number one, the favorites. There's really no home field advantage this year. It's been the away team that's winning, I want to say 85% of the games without fans.
Wow.
And to me, that's huge.
Right.
And you also have to take in consideration back to back. If they're playing back to back nights,
Yeah.
the second game, they're going to rest the stars. If it was up to me, I would not bet, even if it was the Lakers, if they're playing back to back nights, because LeBron's not going to play 34 minutes a game. They're going to reduce his minutes to maybe 28.
Well, and going back to teams taking their foot off the gas, that's probably more relevant in the NBA because of the minute restrictions and resting the stars and the starters is such a bigger thing. I do want to make a quick point to something that you had mentioned in the pre-show that I thought was really interesting. So you had said that there's only one team in the NBA that you feel like still has a home court advantage. And who is that?
Absolutely. It would be the Denver Nuggets. Mile high. No one's used to playing in that atmosphere,
Yep.
being above sea level. So it, like we talked about, that to me, that's really the only real, stadium, if you will, that has a home field advantage for sure. Yeah.
That's a great. So my takeaway from that is a couple things. Obviously, the halves I think are even more relevant in the NBA. Looking for teams that are coming off the back-to-back and fading those teams, and then fade the teams that are playing in Denver. That's I do think too there's less disparity between the teams in the NFL than there are in the NBA. So it's not uncommon for the worst team in the NFL, maybe take out the worst two teams, right? It's not uncommon for the teams at the bottom of the standings in the NFL to beat a team at the top of the standings in the NFL. For the NBA, I think it's probably a little bit more consistent, but you do have to dive into who's on minutes restrictions, the back-to-backs, and then again, the Denver thing is a good one. So it seems to me that the NBA would be a little bit more consistent as long as you take those things into consideration.
No, you're absolutely right, Trey. As far as the NFL, you will see a bad team beat a good team way more than you will see a bad team beat a good team in the NBA. And that's just the way it is.
If I see a 7-point spread in the NFL and the team's not horrible, I am taking the points. And there's a good chance, NFL, the games are close. So you said you typically go with the favorites, and I definitely agree with that for the halves. I'm always looking for, and again, this is what RJ Bell will say, I'm always looking for value in the underdog. And for the NFL, that seems to work out a little bit better. For college, because again, there's a lot more, there's a lot more of a difference between the best teams and the worst teams. And obviously there's a bunch of mismatches that are played there, but that's something that I look for. So, okay, so great insight on both the NFL and the NBA for that part. Before we jump to the next topic, do you have anything else to close out? Just kind of your overall thought process?
Yeah, the only other thing that you brought up a point about in the NFL is the NFL. There, it's not like the NBA because everything's indoors. So the NFL, there's more home field advantage in the NFL. It's not just Denver. For instance, Green Bay this weekend. The cold. Obviously, it's not going to affect Tom Brady because he's played in New England his whole career. But the rest of the team, we'll see. Tampa's they're in the South Beach. They're not South Beach, but it's in Florida. So it's warm and they're used to that warm weather.
So that's a perfect segue, Aaron, into our next topic. Let's go ahead and segue into the next topic, which is the NFL Conference Championship picks. All right, so let's move on to the next segment of the show. So we're going to be talking about, for me, one of my favorite weekends of the year. The divisional rounds are obviously great. I don't know, the Super Wild Card weekend was fantastic. 6 games, 3 on Saturday and 3 on Sunday. I hope they keep that. I thought that was fantastic. But this week is the conference championships. Obviously, we have the AFC and the NFC. We have the Packers versus the Bucks. We have the Chiefs versus the Bills. So, Aaron, I'm interested to hear, obviously, your thought process going into these games. We'll get into the picks for both of the games. We can talk about, and I'll give you my picks for the halves as well and for the whole. But let's start with the Packers versus the Bucks and get your thoughts on that.
As far as the whole, this was kind of tricky because the Packers are actually -3 for the half, which is kind of weird. We talked about that before as well. But I'm still going Packers. I'm going Packers for the first half, and I'm going Packers for the game. And I don't know if it's changed. I think the last time I checked, it was 2.5.
So for
on the site,
the full line is fluctuating between 3 and 3.5. I got it at 3 yesterday. As of this morning, it was at 3.5. So that's really interesting. And I don't know how much you read into that, and I'll give you my thoughts that the half spread is the same as the game spread. What that tells me, just thinking about it, is they think it's going to be a really close game. And I don't know that. So I'm on the Packers. I took the Packers -3 for the full game, but this may be one of the games, and because the spread is so small, where I actually like the full game spread more than the half game spread, because I think it's going to be a close game, the whole game. And I have some more thoughts on why, but maybe talk about that a little bit. What your thought process is.
I didn't write this down in my notes, but I will say this. It started off at Packers +105, and now it's at Packers plus 110. So money's coming in on the Bucks.
Okay, right.
Money's coming in on the Bucks for sure.
Interesting. So you talked about a little bit, and I really like where that direction was going, and it fed into this segment really nicely. The weather. There's going to be some weather in Green Bay. What are your thoughts on that and how it's going to affect the teams? And specifically, and I have thoughts on this, on how it's going to affect the Bucks. And I've gotten into a couple of debates in the last couple of days about how it's going to affect them. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, straight up, it doesn't affect Brady. That's just my opinion, and that's what I believe.
As does nothing. Nothing affects him, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's not even age now. He's the only one, which is, to me, that's the most important piece of a team is your quarterback. Everybody knows that. So if it doesn't affect him, then they should be in this game. Now, will it affect the receivers catching a brick for a football? Um, to me, the Packers have an advantage. Obviously, I mean you can't. It's Aaron Rodgers at home in January. Um, it's like betting against the Patriots back in the day. You know, who wants to bet against Belichick and Brady in their prime? Nobody. Um, that being said, I'm going Packers at home um, against Brady and the Bucks, man. And the only reason why is because I really believe that this is not only a revenge game for Rodgers because he
Yep.
got blown out earlier this year, but he's just a better quarterback as far as with his legs. If
Yeah.
they can get to Brady,
Yep.
it's going to be a long day.
Good point. They've the Packers have been on fire. I've been riding them almost this whole year, and they've done really well for me. I agree with you on the weather. Nothing seems to affect Brady. I think Brady is what gives the Bucks a chance. So what my thought process was is the Buccaneers needed 4 turnovers and a pick 6 included in that to beat the Saints. And then I know they won by 10, but it wasn't that close. They got that
No, it
kind of
wasn't.
late touchdown. So you send that team going into Green Bay with weather, and I just don't think, again, Green Bay's been, I mean, hot. They're on fire. So that was kind of my thought process. Now, and this is an obvious point, but this is what somebody said. Well, don't you think the Buccaneers, because they got 4 turnovers on Drew Brees, don't you think they're going to turn Aaron Rodgers over in the Packers? And I was like, wow, okay, but you can't. It's really tough to bet and to anticipate turnovers. So for me, this is just the Packers are the smarter play here, but I would not be surprised if the Bucks cover or win the game. Going back to the weather, and everybody talks about, the Bucks receivers might come out there with no sleeves, and oh, it's not cold. No, it's cold, and when you don't live there every day, it's not the same thing. And they're in Florida where it's hot and it's humid. They don't have to deal with that on a daily basis. So I think it's absolutely a factor. The colder it is, if there's snow, if there's rain, all those things play into Rodgers. So that's a side that I'm on, and those are the reasons. But I definitely agree with how you're approaching it as well. Anything else on your end to close out? Actually, I do want to call something out. You had talked about a grid or a chart that you built for this game that I thought was really interesting. I'm sure people do. Nobody that I know does this. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit? And to me, it just kind of shows the preparation that you put going into the game as well.
Yeah. So actually, my older brother, shout out to Enoch. Um, he's got me into this. So what we do is we break down position by position and fronts. So we'll ask each other, okay, who's got the better quarterback? Okay. In this case, I say it's a tie. I would say it's even. And we go to the next position: running back, receiver, O line, D line, linebacker, and DB. So normally, what we do, and I know we don't have time for all of this, but we'll go by player. So right now, I'll just go by the fronts. So or by the corpse. Yeah. Who's got the better running back? Who's got the better receiver? And this is just my opinion. I'm leaning Rodgers. I know this. I said they're even, but I'm leaning Rodgers because of his legs. He can run for first downs, and that's huge. That's something Mahomes does. That's something that'll win you a game. Josh Allen, and that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. So running back, I'll give the edge to Tampa. I think they have a better running game. Receivers, how banged up are the Bucks receivers? There's no Antonio Brown. Godwin's limited all week. Evans limited all week. Devontae Adams is unstoppable. There's no one that can cover him. Yep. He showed that when he went against Ramsey. He made Ramsey look like he was average, and he was shutting everybody down. O-line, I give it even. D-line, I Slight edge to the Bucks. Linebackers, the Bucks all the way. They got Devin White. They got Devontae David. The linebackers are amazing. Shaq Barrett. As far as DBs, I give the edge to the Bucks as well. So after the overview of offense versus defense, it's really Tampa's defense versus Packers offense.
Yep.
And who's gonna can they keep Rodgers from making mistakes?
The great thing about an NFL game is you get a turnover, you get a long play, you get a special teams touchdown, you get a defensive touchdown. Everything changes, and all four teams that are playing on Sunday are really good. So that's what I think we all love about playoff football, that every play starts to matter, right? And I like the Packers going into it, but you turn the Bucks get a couple turnovers, whatever, a fumble, a tip ball could easily happen. Give Brady a short field. That's a huge problem, and that could change the whole game. So before we move on to the next game, any other thoughts on this one?
Go Packers.
Go Pack, go, as Lil Wayne will say. So let's talk about the Chiefs and the Bills. The game is the Bills are traveling to the Chiefs. The first half line is Chiefs -2.5. The full game line is Chiefs -3. To my surprise, even yesterday after they announced that Patrick Mahomes, Vanessa calls him Mick Holmes, and that just messed me up because I was trying not to say that. Patrick Mahomes is cleared to play through concussion protocol. We had talked a little bit about, and I think you have some questions for me concerning how we think that's going to affect him. So the line didn't move after they announced that he was healthy, or that he was cleared to play, excuse me. So what are your thoughts on this game?
First off and foremost, the Bills are playing really good defense. They were kind of shaky against the Colts, but they were able to bend but not break.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I mean, Josh Allen's going to run, man. And that guy, to me, with that bazooka arm he has, it's almost unstoppable, man. If the kid is on.
Yep. He's on. So with how he's playing, and I asked some buddies this question, and I was surprised at my answer even. With how he's playing right now, where would you rank him in terms of even the quarterback? Because I think you have at least 3 of the 4 best quarterbacks in the league in the playoffs, if not the best 4 right now. Where would you rank Josh Allen right now with how he's playing?
Right now, with a hurt Mahomes, I'm going to go Rodgers Allen, dude.
Yeah. And you could even make that argument, I think. And now, I mean, it's Rodgers is out of his mind right now, but what made it for me was how much Josh Allen, how much he has the ability to scramble. And Robert actually asked me, he said, are they more death by 1,000 cuts, or are they, big play hitters? And I said, they're kind of both, because with Diggs, they have that deep threat ability and they certainly use it. But then with Allen also, he'll run for the first down, but he'll also run for 25, 30 yards, 40 yards. So I think that's a really tough team to defend right now. And I don't think anybody is hot. I know I said the Packers were hot, which I think was a little bit more to be expected. But the Bills are almost like the team of destiny, which that could end very quickly, right? So anyways, those are kind of some of my takes. What else from your end?
Yeah, so it's as far as what you said about Allen being able to run, the thing is, and you asked me a question: what quarterbacks would you take out of the 4 left?
Mm-hmm.
A healthy Mahomes, obviously, I'm going to take Mahomes. It's going to be, that's obvious. Now, 70% Mahomes, can he? And this goes back to one of my questions for you was, can Mahomes scramble for first down? Because that's huge. And what did he do in the playoffs last year?
Right.
And we were on the Chiefs last year, me and
Yeah.
you.
His ability to extend plays and his improvisation skills is what separates him from everybody else, right? If he's just a pure drop back pocket passer, which he's as good as anybody at doing that, but what separates him is those extension of plays. And I can remember betting against him a couple times last year, and it was the most frustrating thing in the world. And I quickly learned, stop betting against the Chiefs with Mahomes being healthy. So I think a toe is huge. Like, and you saw he was not right the last game against the Browns. The Browns kind of hung with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you take into effect, if you're the coaches and he's coming off of concussion protocol, do you want him running around? Right? I mean, you do
Absolutely
what you have to do to get a first down, but you're going to tell him like, hey, look, we need you in the game. Chad Henne, good for him. He had that scramble on 3rd and 14, and he threw a really good pass on 4th and 1. But I don't think you want Chad Henne trying to beat the Bills for any amount of time because the Bills are not the Browns. So I think it's going to hurt him quite a bit, not only from the standpoint of just physically, right, his ability to endure it throughout the game, but also how that changes what his approach is and things like that to the game. So. So you said you had a couple of other things that we were talking about kind of pre-show. Let's talk through those real quick and the questions that you had.
To me, the most important question would be for the KC Bills game would be, which team is more hungry?
Oh, right. So I really like Andy Reid as a coach, right? I think this comes down to how can the coach motivate their players and keep them humble. And I think he's done a good job. Having said that, you're never more hungry than when you're trying to get your first one. It's nothing against Kansas City. I'm not saying they don't want to win the game as much as the Bills do. It's almost like, and obviously with it being sudden elimination, it's almost like desperation. Like I always like taking NBA teams that are in the playoffs that are down 3-1, right? Or that are down 3-0, because you have that mindset of one team going, well, we're up. And again, I know they don't say this, we're up, right? We have this series. And you have this other team going, it's desperation. I mean, you talk about whether it's in sports, whether it's in real life, I don't care what it is. You want to bring the best out of somebody, get your back against a wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get in a desperation mode. And I just think that because of the situation, it's been really cool to see, the city of Buffalo, Bills Mafia, just everything that team means to that city and how long they've been out, and to be able to see how far now, all that can, like they say, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. They could go in there and get punched in the face a couple times, and that changes. So I like saying they're the team of destiny, but that doesn't mean they're going to win, right? So that's a long way to answer the question, but so I'd have to say the Bills, but it's through no fault of the Chiefs. They're not, they're not.
So Bills are more hungry.
I think so. Yeah. Yep.
Well, now this is the icing on top. Who do you got?
So I have the Bills. I like taking the points, as I mentioned. I think they're the hot team. I don't think Mahomes is right. I think if Mahomes is 100% right, then you have to take the Chiefs at home, only laying 3. And again, going back to the spread, question back to you. If Mahomes was right, do you think the spread would have changed? Are you surprised that the spread hasn't moved and then it's only 3?
Absolutely. In my opinion, I think it would be at least 4.5.
That's what I was thinking.
Chiefs minus 4.5 at least.
Yep. I agree. So we always say when a number doesn't look right, they know something, right?
Stay away.
stay away. Man, that's too easy. Just stay away, right? And then it always ends up going the other way. So I think that gives me another kind of a pause for it. So you had mentioned and certainly I'm not usually this disciplined on games like this, but you had said you have your play for the Packers that you have played, but you're not actually gonna have a play on the Chiefs and Bills, or what is your from a play standpoint, are you going to take somebody with this?
To be honest, if the Packers come through, I might consider
Okay.
taking the Bills.
Okay.
Because I'm like everything we just talked about, as far as Mahomes not being healthy and whatnot. I'm leaning Bills for sure.
Gotcha.
Like I said, if my pick comes through, then yeah,
And
I
that's
might throw a little wager in there.
so that's an interesting point too. And I think I did a much better job this year of, if I don't like a game, just stay away from it. Anything's better than losing. So if you're not sure, just stay away from the game. Again,
Especially
I don't.
When you know you can't push. When you know when they got that half a point in there.
That's true.
There's no tying.
Yeah. Now I get sucked into. There's only a couple more NFL games. I want some action. Now I'm not throwing a ton of money. It's just enough to make it interesting. So I'm going to play both of those. I'm going to play the Packers and the Bills. But just advice, if I could give anybody, I don't know that you want to take betting advice from me. If anybody does, you probably shouldn't. But don't be afraid to stay away. You have a good feeling on the Packers and not as good of a feeling on the Chiefs and Bills. And I would, if I had to rank which one I felt better about, I would agree with that, with the Packers.
I agree
but
as well.
Still tough. Okay, awesome. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this topic up, and let's move on to our next topic. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into our final segment for the show, and we're going to wrap two topics into this one. One is going to be wagers for this week. Aaron's going to talk about what his record is this week so far and what he's bet on, and then he's going to give you his play for the day, which will be for today as well. So, Aaron, talk a little bit about what you've been able to accomplish this week.
Okay, so shout out to WagerHub888.com. I started the week. I have my account set up different than other people. Other people like credit, which they get a $500 credit, and they play off of that. I have it set up where I like to deposit my money first, Cash App, Zelle. So I cashed that. I Zelled $25 on Monday to start the week, and I'm at 7-2 for the week.
Nice.
I'm at 137.14, positive 137.14, and I have a $50 pinning bet for the Packers. So that puts me at 187.14.
Nice.
Starting off with 25. So I would like to say this. Just because I'm 7-2 doesn't mean that this happens every week. No, this just happens to be a fortunate week and a coincidence while we're doing the show at the same time.
I gave you a little confidence, huh?
Yeah, me and you and my brother, we've been betting for a long time, whether it's through a sports betting book or a friend of yours or a friend of ours.
Sure.
So I would like to say this. So 6 out of my 9 bets were within 3 points. So win or lose.
Could have gone either way. Yep.
Could have gone either way. And obviously, I don't know if we talked. This is basketball, all NBA. I don't know if we brought that up. One other bet out of the 9 was within 4 points. So in other words, if you don't like stress, don't bet NBA first half. But one other thing I would like to say, as far as my 9 bets for the week, 8 out of 9 were favorites. And that's pretty interesting. Whether it was 5 points, 3 points, half a point, I even took the Lakers on the money line for the first half because that's one game. I want the viewers to understand one thing, and that money line, the line really means something. So in other words, okay, I could have took the Lakers for minus half a point to win, to risk was a minus 110 versus taking them on the money line plus 110. So to me, it made sense. What's half a point?
Right.
the worst that they tie and I lose. What's the odds of them tying in the first half?
Right. Yep.
And I was explaining that to my brother because you obviously know how close we are and how much we bang heads, and he gives me a lot of insight, and he's, as you know, he's very knowledgeable when it comes to sports bets. But as far as
Talking through, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was going to end it at viewers, don't get your hopes up because it's really tough. Um, it's not easy, and it's just a good week for me.
Well, congrats on the good week. I think we've all had plenty of bad weeks. So, and we were talking about this before, you know, and people will always throw out like, you know, well, I'm 4-0 or I'm 4-1. It's like, hey, that's great when you have those runs. Enjoy it. It makes it more enjoyable, you know, depending on if you bet just for fun or if you're a professional. It makes it more enjoyable, but it is those weeks are hard. I've had, you know, way more 2-7 weeks than I've had 7-2 weeks, but I do it, you know, I bet just kind of more casually just to, you know, I get a little bit more into the games. I don't do a ton of research on them. Again, just because it's just a casual thing. The professionals, right? If they hit, and again, RJ Bell says this, if you hit, I think it's 52%, then you can be a professional gambler. So think about that for
Awesome.
your overall record. If you can just hit a little bit over 52%, then that's what the professional gamblers. So what that tells me is that it's really hard. And any run as a amateur or casual gambler that you go on, that's freaking awesome. And again, for me, it's fun. I don't bet a ton of money, and we were talking about this too. I used to bet, you know, more money on the big games, and it's just so stressful. And that's just not for me, right? Personally, I'm just going, okay, I'd rather bet more games, but a little bit less amount. And that way I'm not so stressed out about it. And I do think too, you know, if you have a right strategy and you do the research and you do your homework, winning at a higher percentage and losing at a slow and steady pace is how to do it. Right now, you might pick the right game. You know, you might bet, you know, 10 times what you would normally bet on a game and hit that right game. But there's no locks, man. There's no freaking locks. Even if you get a good number right when the spreads come out, no such thing as a lock. So my just little bit of advice and what I do is I want my bankroll to last. So I bet, you know, X amount on every game based on what I'm comfortable losing or what the bankroll is. So let's move into the last topic, play of the day for today. Let's hear it. I'm excited to hear what it is.
Yeah. So my play of the day, and probably as long as Cat is out, which is Karl Anthony Towns, bet against the Timberwolves.
Against them.
Yes, and
Okay.
today, and yeah, so today would be the Pelicans. It's Pelicans -8 for the game. I'm getting them at 4.5 for the game.
Nice. Okay.
I'm sorry, for the half.
For the half.
It's 8 for the game, 4.5 for the half. Here's my logic on why this is my pick of the day, and it's really simple. Um, the T Wolves have lost the last 4 to 5, as well as the Pelicans 4 to 5. But the competition the Pelicans have lost to versus the competition the Wolves have lost to is bar none. It's a really big difference. Yeah. So, and that being said, Zion is a beast. You cannot hold him in the paint. And if you can get a decent game from Lonzo, and you got Brandon Ingram, which is he can have a monster game as well. There was nobody on the T Wolves side that can stop him.
Right.
The only thing that's going to stop them is the Pelicans is themselves. So my pick of the day would be, or which I got money on, and that is Pelicans -4.5 for the half. I would even take them -8 for the game.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. And that plays into the things where you said you like taking the superstars, you like taking the favorites, and it sounds like you're wanting to fade. Your advice is to fade the Timberwolves as long as Cat is out. All right. Good stuff, man. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Shout out to Aaron for coming on the show. It can be a tough, and not that we have been doing this that long, but it can be a challenge to get in front of the camera and talk about something. We all talk about, things to our friends, and we all have conversations and all that stuff. So kudos to you, Aaron, for doing that, and for all the research that you did. That's really cool. And I know I appreciate it and the viewers appreciate it. And I'm happy to do this, as often as you want. And, we can look at this one and see what we like and go from there. So please subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks, guys.